So to recap, we have desires. These desires tell us to do any given thing at any given time. But our desires can only take account of the present. Our desires can only take account of the present. Right now I feel hungry, I want to eat. Right now I feel bored. Right now I feel tired, I want to lie down. So all of our desires are responding to the present. And if we allow the present to dominate our lives, then we're not taking account of the future. And so, in a sense, you can say that the present will is cucked by the future will, and this is done through language. I think of, in an animal example, that you have a dog, and the dog wants to eat the food on the table. But the dog has been trained not to eat the food on the table because the dog remembers the past. The dog remembers some training that the dog will be punished for jumping up on the table, and so the dog doesn't, or perhaps there's some instinct of the dog to not take from the alpha. Or the dog feels that the owner is the alpha. Let's say this is the case. Let's say it's the case that, the dog is acting off of ancestral memories. I don't know what's going on in the mind of the dog, but let's say for a moment that the dog is looking at that food and saying, well, I want to eat it in the present, but I know that if I do that, I will be punished. And my fear of punishment is greater than the enjoyment of the food. So the dog doesn't jump up on the table, but the dog sort of whimpers. And often people perceive this whimpering as the dog is begging for food. And that's possible, I suppose. The dog is trying to communicate its desire for food. But there's another possibility, which is the dog, rather than trying to communicate its begging, the dog is actually whimpering in itself. The dog is kind of doing the pee-pee dance. When you need to use the bathroom, but for whatever reason you can't just take off your pants and pee on the floor. And so you've got to wait. You've got to wait in line. You've got to wait in line for someone to come out of the bathroom so you can go into the bathroom. So you start, you start making these noises and grimacing. And that's what I think the dog is doing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about what the dog is doing, but that's what I think the dog is doing. I think the dog is not whimpering to communicate to its owner. The dog is whimpering because it's fighting itself. It's fighting its own urge. It's fighting that present urge, that urge to just jump up on that table and eat that food, but it knows that it can't. It knows that it shouldn't. And to me, this is the function of language. That language tells us that we have to do things we don't want to do. And language tells us that we cannot do things that we do want to do. And so this is a denial of the immediacy of the will. This is a denial of what you would say is the natural will. And so this is what comes from domestication. Domestication is when an animal is taken out of its natural habitat and put into an unnatural habitat. And during that process, the animal begins to whimper, and the animal becomes cucked. there really is no distinction between cucking and domestication. But I guess we hope in domestication that this higher social organism is working toward the good. But the problem with that is all domestication tend towards a system of slavery and of hive-mindedness and of the destruction of that Nietzschean animal will. And we recognize, we instinctively are disgusted by it when we're shown it out of context. Like when you have to talk to somebody in authority and you have to pretend that you like them or be polite to them, you might not feel this is a form of slavery. But when you see perhaps other people doing it, you can recognize the way someone becomes cowed, someone becomes domesticated. And it becomes disgusting at some point. And so when when Christianity is normalized, we don't have this constant sense that it's this terrible, unnatural imposition. But when we become alienated from Christianity, when we become alienated from civilization, when we become alienated from government, when we become alienated from these social structures, from domestication, they appear to be cucking, to be slavery. And I guess these two concepts could be looked at in an Aristotelian way, which is to say that if they're being used towards good ends, it's also a Platonic idea. If they're being used toward proper ends, then it's okay that we have bureaucracy. It's okay that we have domestication. It's okay that we have a state. It's okay that we have a government. When libertarians say the state is based on violence and slavery and violation of the non-aggression principle, it's like, okay, yes. But if it's toward a higher good, then that's okay. We can accept that. We can live with that. We can normalize that. We can be okay with that. But if we don't feel like any of this is serving some higher end, some kind of quest for truth or God or something higher than ourselves, if we aren't willing to accept at some level that there is a will higher than ourselves, if we aren't willing to accept at some point that there's something beyond and above ourselves, then everything in this world is just cucking and slavery and domestication without a purpose. And there is no freedom. And that's a very scary place to be. And it seems to me that whether you like it or not, you can't really escape from this. Connor Murphy, I think, is an example of a man who feels it is his duty to escape from this. But I don't know that he'll succeed. I don't know that we can succeed because there's so many competing wills which are so much stronger than ourselves. Human beings are so weak and small compared to the world around us that we're very limited in our ability to be free. But perhaps rather than struggle against this slavery, rather than continuously balk at it, rather than continuously be angry and upset about it, maybe instead we could accept that which we cannot change. We could accept those parts of our lives which are impossible, unbeatable. You know, I can't go back to 2013 and invest in Bitcoin. I don't have that option. I don't have that freedom. It's not the way time works. So I just have to accept that. I have to accept the consequences of my poor decision not to, you know, steal my parents' pocketbook and run away and find some Bitcoin programmer and give him 20 bucks and get some Bitcoin on a wallet and write down an encryption key. And, you know, I can't do that. I don't have that freedom. And so I just have to accept it. And I have to accept that I can't just walk along the street and I can't just pick up a suitcase full of money. And you know, somebody leaves their car running on the street, I can't just hop in the car and start driving it. You know, you ever see that people leave the keys in the ignition, they leave the car running and they walk into the gas station and they just leave the car running. And you're like, man, I could just drive GTA style. You know, that's why we like GTA, because it gives us this simulation of freedom. But we can't do that. And we just have to accept that. But maybe if we accept that as a static fact, in the same way the lion has to accept his own hunger, he has to accept his own limitations, all animals on some level have to accept things as static. The animal doesn't try to run into walls. The animal accepts things stronger than itself. But the animal still has a sense of freedom, because the animal is able to understand that which is environmental, that which is static, and that which is dynamic. And it pursues the prey which is dynamic. It grazes the grass which is dynamic. It does that which is in its power. It's a slave to nature. We're all a slave to nature. But we can find freedom in those aspects of the world which are under our control. And the first thing that we have under our control is our own mind and our own body and our own actions. And when we begin to understand this, when I see people who are overweight, addicted to porn, addicted to video games, not spending their time wisely, you know, when I see that, I see it in other people. I look in the mirror and I say, wait a second, you guys are talking about changing the government? You're talking about the globalists, you're talking about people of billions of dollars, and you can't get up in time in the morning. You're 5 minutes late for your classes, you don't eat right, your body is you're not making good use of your time. It's like, and you want to change what the globalists are doing, the billionaire class, you want to change what they're doing, but you don't have a handle over your own emotions. You're having a temper tantrum, you're depressed, okay? You don't have control over your own mind, over your own body, over your own emotions. You don't even like yourself, and you want to change what the billionaire class and the global government is doing. It's like, wait a second, we should probably step back, and we should probably say that if we can't control ourselves, then there's no way that we can control other people. And that's the first thing we have to do. And it doesn't mean that we give up on changing other people, but maybe rather than trying to change global government, maybe you start with local government, right? And it doesn't mean that local government can't impact. I mean, I still say vote in national elections, vote in global elections, but let's have our priorities straight. First and foremost, take control, capture, and enslave your own thoughts. Become the master of your own thoughts. Cuck yourself. Cuck those thoughts. The thoughts of depression, say, you know what, depression, you're going to sit in the corner today, and I'm going to take charge. You know, depression, you've married yourself to my life, but I'm going to take your wife. Maybe say that to your depression. Maybe say obesity. I know you've taken my life as your girlfriend, but today you're going to be in the closet and you're going to be watching me, and I'm going to be with your girlfriend today. So maybe that's the attitude you should have toward these things. These common problems, these problems where I look at the statistics, and it's like when you look at young people who are in high school and college, it's like 30% of them are just, objectively they say, I don't even want to live. I don't even want to live anymore. This is a millions and millions of people, and this is our next generation, and it's getting worse. So it's a really bad situation. So to tell me that, oh no, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you just got to pretend that doesn't exist and ignore it, that doesn't actually work. That's not masculinity. That's not being a man. It is not masculine. It is not manly to say, yeah, maybe I'm depressed, but I'm just going to keep going to my 9-to-5 job because that's what a man does. It's like, no, stop. Stop what you're doing. If you're depressed and you're going to a 9-to-5 job, you're not living life. You're dead. And so many of these people fear death. So many of these people fear death, and yet they've never lived. They've never lived, or they haven't lived since they were a kid, and at some point they died inside. They died inside, and that's the beauty of Christianity, because it offers us a second life. It offers us a resurrection. and maybe you don't believe in that, but can't you see the necessity of that? Can't you see the utility of that? Can't you see that clinging to the truth, these truth statements, I am this, I am that, can't you see that clinging to that is a fate worse than death? And that rather than just continuing the daily grind of, yes, I'm going to go to my 9-to-5 job, and yes, I'm going to continue to do all the things I'm supposed to do and dot my I's and cross my T's. It's like, if you're depressed, if you don't have control of your mind and your body, and you're living a daily struggle, you're living a daily war against yourself, start thinking about your negative thoughts. How many times a day do you think about, just metaphorically, how many times a day do you say, oh man, just, I can't even say that because it sounds so harsh, but so many people do it. So many people say, like, just, I don't even want to say it. You know what I'm going to say. Just blank me. Just do whatever with me. It's over. You know, I'm this, I'm that. These statements, I don't even want to make them, but when you start to recognize them, how many times a day do you think about things that you've done in the past, things that you will do in the future, things that you're doing now in the present, and you think these negative thoughts? And it's not to say that we shouldn't learn lessons from our past, and we should think about our future, and we should act well in the present, but how many of us are dwelling in these things? How many of us spend, the overthinkers, if you're an overthinker and you overthink things, how many of us have insomnia because we're up at night thinking about negative things? We're thinking about these negative things rather than working on these things. How much time have you spent thinking about negative things but never planning and scheduling and doing things to build off that? Let's say you made a terrible mistake. Okay, how much time have you spent thinking about that? And you're like, well, I probably think about it every single day of my life for the past year. Okay, so you keep thinking about this terrible mistake you made and why you're such a bad person, but how much time have you spent planning and scheduling and making things happen to change that? Let's say you were weak. Okay, what are you doing to become stronger? What are you doing to become stronger? Are you just beating yourself up every day? Are you just wallowing and dwelling in misery every day? Or are you saying, well, what would it look like to be stronger? Do I even know? Okay, maybe I need to find some people. Maybe I need to seek out people who are strong, and I need to ask them, what makes you strong? What kind of thoughts do you think? What kind of habits do you have? How do you live your life? Start emulating that person. It's such an easy thing to do. And you say, well, I can't do that. I don't have time. You don't have time. You're not even alive. You're not even alive. How can you be worried about whether or not you have time when you're not even alive? You say, well, I've got this job and I've got these responsibilities. You're not even a person yet. You're a shell of a person if you're living life that way. So I think everybody's on the spectrum. I think even the most perfect of people among us still probably spend more time dwelling on the negative and dwelling in self-degradation than we should. That's not what Jesus wants you to do. He came to relieve you of guilt and shame and sin, not because you're a perfect person, but because those things paralyze you and prevent you from doing good things in the future. So he wants you to be renewed. He wants you to be restored. And that's a continual process. I don't believe in this one and done thing. I believe that, and if you've had a different experience, hallelujah, I guess. But I think most real people who are honest with themselves, they, no matter how good they are at walking the Christian life or walking in the light or walking in purity, living a good life, everyone sometimes gets captured by these thoughts of negativity, these thoughts of these are the cucking thoughts. And some people are really good at snapping out of it and rejecting it and saying that's a lie and I need to move on and I need to act and I need to do something today to make myself stronger. And some of us aren't so good, but we're all trying to move toward the good. And so you're either going to agree with what I'm saying because you already do it, or you're going to reject what I'm saying because you think that beating yourself up is the way that you make yourself stronger. Which is not to say that there's a difference between beating yourself up with negative thoughts and challenging yourself with obstacles, with saying, there's a difference between saying, I'm a bad person, I do bad things, I will never forgive myself. There's a difference between that and saying, today I'm gonna go on a 4-hour walk. Today I'm gonna talk to that girl. Today I'm going to make a friend. Today I'm going to apply for a job. Today I'm going to go somewhere I've never been before. Today I'm going to learn something I've never done before. Today I'm going to be disciplined. Today I'm going to practice a habit. Today I'm going to learn a language. Today I'm going to watch something educational and I'm going to take notes. You know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to watch a YouTube video and I'm going to take a pen and I'm gonna take a piece of paper, and even if I already watched it, I'm gonna go back to the beginning, and I'm gonna take notes. And it might be one word, it might be, this video was about guilt, this video was about language, this video is about, you're gonna write one word down on a piece of paper. You're gonna write the word cuck, you're gonna write the word language, you're gonna write the word guilt, you're gonna write the word Christianity, you're gonna write the word, what's in the background over there? You're gonna write the word construction zone. You're going to write one word, and then once you write that one word, that's the first part is always the hardest part. And so once you write that one word, it's going to be so easy to write the next word. Thank you for honking at me. There's a lot of rude people. I've been screamed at. I've been walking on the street today. I've been screamed at by probably 5 different people, incoherently screaming out of their cars. Let's not dwell on that thought, right? Let's not dwell on that. Let us instead say that rather than beat ourselves up with our words, let's give ourselves encouraging words. Let's strengthen ourselves with our words, but let's challenge ourselves through action. Let's challenge ourselves through dynamic interaction with our environment. Let's take notes on a YouTube video today. Let's really focus. Let's make our time valuable. Let's not multitask. Let's learn focus. Let's learn to be attentive. Let's learn to let's practice really focusing all of your energies and all of your attention, all of your mind, body, and spirit on one thing at a time. Whatever that is, doesn't have to be this YouTube video, it could be anything else. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a relationship, maybe today I'm gonna practice listening, maybe today I'm gonna call up somebody I love who I haven't spoken to in a while, and I'm just gonna listen to them with all my mind, body, and spirit. I'm not going to do a perfect job, but I'm going to endeavor to improve. Every day, I'm going to improve. So these are my thoughts of today. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you continue to construct your life and raise yourself up so that you can ultimately raise people up around you, because that's what it's all about. We're here to make ourselves into the best tools. We're here to make ourselves into transformers, into big yellow cranes, so that we can become big, strong cranes, that we can lift other people up, so that we can rip them out of depression, so we can rip them out of obesity, so we can rip them out of sadness and despair and misery, and so that we can raise them up into the heavens. You and I, let's do it. Till next time, bye-bye.